Operation Desert Storm has begun. This morning, at approximately 3 o'clock Riyadh time, a massive air interdiction strike was initiated. U.S. Air Force attack and bomber aircraft included F-15E Strike Eagles, F-16 Fighting Falcons, A-10 Thunderbolts, F-111s, F-117 Stealth Fighters, F-4G Wild Weasels, and B-52s. Naval and Marine aircraft included F-18 Hornets, A-7s, and A-6s. Although we can't discuss specific targets, they include military emplacements, air defense assets, and command and control targets. Additionally, United States Army AH-64 Apache attack helicopters also took part in the operation.
Despite its low billing, the Apache's role in the Gulf War is crucial. Just 15 meters above the desert floor, Army pilots spearhead the greatest air assault launched since the Second World War. The helicopter will crack the enemy's air defense shell and destroy Iraq's frontline radar stations, clearing the way for the 700 coalition strike aircraft that will follow them.
Northern limit is 101.
The 64 was decided upon as the best option for a couple of reasons. Number one was the standoff capabilities of the Hellfire missile system itself. Number two was the capability of the aircraft and the crews to stay until the job was done. A fixed-wing aircraft, he comes in, he drops his ordnance, he has to leave. They had to have 100% verification that those sites were down.
Need some good intel brought back on what is forward of us.
Okay, you got a recorder set up? Yes, recorder.
No machine is better suited for the job. This futuristic Silicon Valley creation is by far the most complex weapon that the United States Army sends into combat.
.63, avoid range 63. That's a firm. I'm going to be skirting the eastern edge of range 63.
Deadly quiet, and with an extraordinarily low radar signature, the two-seat gunship will prowl undetected deep into enemy territory to blind Iraq's air defenses with a barrage of laser-guided missiles. But the Apache is new to combat, and for the first time, the pilots who fly it will employ knowledge gathered in countless mock battles above the forest and training grounds of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's here that Army pilots learn to harmonize with infantry, artillery, and armor in a fluid and lethal symphony. Commanders call it the Combined Arms Team. Their goal, to outmaneuver and then overwhelm the enemy. The AH-64's primary mission is to support the GIs on the ground. They stand vigil less than 30 meters above the battlefield, and when called upon, deliver a massive blow to enemy units in the area.
Vicinity grid 70773.
Of all the men in today's Combined Arms Team, perhaps none feels the weight of their duty more heavily than Apache pilots. These soldier airmen are team managers who must absorb and communicate information at an incredible pace under extreme combat duress.
We will drop down to the ground frequency, and if you come up against any unexpected resistance, we're there to provide direct fire.
All are aware that even the slightest error can lead to catastrophe.
One of the very challenging things about being an Apache pilot is you don't just fly. The flying part's the easy part. You not only have to fly, you have to do a lot of communications.
You come in on the right flank and continue
Well, you don't just fly and communicate either. You also have to employ your weapon system, both individually and as part of a team. Well, you don't just do those things either. You then add on the fact that you are managing the battle. You are fighting the battle in front of you. It takes a very good pilot, a very technical pilot, and it also takes some of that natural skill to be able to do that. There are people who can fly your average airplane who cannot do the other things.
X-ray 75, this is Charlie 47, Texaco is clear.
You have your feet on the pedals, a hand on the collective, a hand on the cyclic, and it only takes a nanosecond to make the wrong decision, be looking the wrong way, make the wrong slightest of moves on any of those controls to put you into the trees.
To an Apache pilot, rugged terrain is both enemy and friend. Hugging the ground, he's taught to use the trees and folds of the earth to stalk his prey. And unlike Air Force flyers, he cannot rely on terrain-following radar to get him there. Once in range, he must pull into a hover, thus providing a rock-steady platform to get his weapons onto target. Using the sticks, cyclic and collective, the pilot makes constant adjustments to the articulation of the rotor blades and the power of the engines until the craft is perfectly suspended in midair. Any shift in wind direction, common at such low level, forces him to again fine-tune his adjustments.
I remember my initial instructor years ago in flight school told me that he thought trying to teach somebody who had never flown a helicopter to hover a helicopter in one spot 3 feet above the ground was about like trying to teach a guy how to ride a unicycle on top of a basketball.
In the front seat sits the gunner.
Okay, come down. Okay, I got target right there. Roger. Let me go. Hand off. Let's see if I can...
The destructive power at his fingertips is formidable and includes a 30mm chain gun, up to 38 rockets, and as many as 16 laser-guided Hellfire missiles.
Nice shot,
A well-trained pilot knows where to put that aircraft to see the enemy without being seen. He can put Mother Earth, large trees and hills between his airframe and the enemy, and there's nothing better to protect him than skill and knowledge and just using terrain to his advantage.
Aggression is second nature to all combat troops, but perhaps more so than other Army personnel, these men are also skilled technicians. The $14 million aircraft that they fly is packed with over 11 black boxes. These relay avionics information and FLIR, or thermal imagery, to a helmet-mounted eyepiece that is slaved to an electronic eyeball on the front of the helicopter. With this, machine and pilot become one, a system made possible by sensors mounted on the side of the pilot's helmet.
They pick up signals from these two components on the side of the seat. Mount the actual sight onto the side of the helmet and move the eyepiece in front of the eye. At the base of this is a 1-inch television screen. That signal is projected, and all the information you need to fly, the flare picture, airspeed, altitude, direction, weapons, all of that information is directed onto this screen. So what you do is you position your head into an imaginary box inside the aircraft. These sensors pick up where the helmet is located. You then bore sight the crosshairs in your sight with the bore sight reticle unit on top of the dash in front of you, center it, hit a switch, and then you've electronically saved the position of your head in the aircraft. So after that, anytime you look left or right, the eyepiece and the sensor on the front of the aircraft are in coincidence, and wherever you look, it's looking. In effect, it's the same as if you took your eye moved it 3 feet down and 10 feet forward and placed it at the front of the aircraft, because all of the imagery that you receive on the screen is from that sensor at the very front of the aircraft.
The Apache's menacing looks are backed up by its awesome array of weapons. Like the aircraft sensors, the helicopter's 30mm chain gun is slaved to the pilot's eyes. So too are its rocket pods and Hellfire missiles. It is, by any measure, a stealthy machine. The helicopter is uniquely equipped with baffles fixed to the rear of the engines that cool its exhaust and reduce its heat signature. The Apache's olive drab paint scheme is radar sensitive and can absorb enemy radar beacons attempting to seek it out. But the aircraft's greatest protection by far is the black of night. It cloaks itself in the shadows that best serve its fighting capabilities.
To say we own the night, though that's a good ad, the night is a challenge, and we own more of it than anyone else does, but we're still challenged at night. Night vision goggles still give us about 40% acuity. You couldn't get into flight school with eyes like that, yet we get out here every night and fly around, reducing our visibility to that.
The dangers inherent in night operations affect ground crew and pilots alike. Working in a darkened landing zone is nearly as hazardous as flying into one. While there are a number of systems that enable Apache pilots to see through darkness, none is perfect. With one eye trained on the flashing lights of their wingmen and the other through their headset eyepiece, Army pilots face an overwhelming chore. Choosing from thermal and infrared vision, they must navigate an extremely sophisticated machine at treetop level to a map coordinate located somewhere in the darkness below. Along the way, they must be ever vigilant for enemy threats trying to blow them out of the night sky. In many ways, modern warfare has become a gruesome, detached video game. For Apache pilots, the tool of choice is the Hellfire missile. This anti-tank weapon fires upward and then descends onto the top of the enemy vehicle, striking it at its most thinly armored point. The missile then follows a laser beam that the gunner has aimed at the intended target.
Looking at almost a 3K shot. You ready?
Whenever you are.
And fire.
See that puppy go.
In mock battle, the Hellfire missile boasts a near-perfect record. But in the Gulf War, the challenges of desert combat will put that record to the test.
Yeah! There's a hit. Oh, look at it blow up.
Pilots are only as good as their training. And for those in Apache cockpits, that training was never based on fighting a war above the barren landscape of the Persian Gulf.
We had learned to fight in a European theater. I mean, you've got rolling hills, you've got trees, you've got masking, ability to hide from the enemy. And now all of a sudden, we're being told you're going to further deploy to an area that you've never seen before, you've never trained for. So where you're used to hiding in this big green helicopter in the trees, it's not there anymore.
When war with Iraq comes, nearly 300 Apaches are dispatched to the Gulf, seeing more action than any other combat aircraft. The men who fly them will suffer the adversity of the desert environment.
Our air conditioning on the Apache, the ENCU, would ingest sand and would quit. And we had several crews flying around in their mission-oriented protective posture, their chemical gear with no air conditioning, and in fact hot air blowing into the cockpit, and it was probably 100 degrees outside, so those crews were not happy.
The helicopter is a complex and fragile machine, and the fine dust of the Saudi desert wreaks havoc with it. Rotor blades and missile seeker heads fared the worst. Early on, critics had questioned the AH-64's durability. Here in the Gulf, they find vindication. Over 1/3 of the Apache force is knocked out of service by the harsh conditions of the region. It's a technician's nightmare, and over the course of the war, each helicopter requires at least 5 maintenance hours for every 1 hour of flying time. No other aircraft in the conflict racks up such a dismal mission capability rate. Despite grave questions of reliability, when commanders devised the plan to thrust through Saddam Hussein's air defense shell, they choose Apache as their bayonet. The helicopter's assignment? To slip into Iraqi airspace 30 minutes ahead of the Allied air armada and destroy a sector of the enemy's radar sites strung along the border. Surprise is imperative. The Iraqis' lines of communications must be severed quickly before they can notify Baghdad of the impending attack. If successful, the Apaches will open a narrow 130-kilometer corridor for the first of some 700 coalition warplanes set to follow them.
I got the bench. You just lift the weight.
16 men from the famed 101st Airborne Division are selected for the job.
Commandant Frisbee, copy conversation.
The fate of nearly 1,000 Navy and Air Force pilots, most of them lieutenants, captains, majors and colonels, will lie in the hands of this small team of Army Chief Warrant Officers.
Okay, we're then 3,500 meters. Go guns. Okay, guns. Okay. I'll slow it down some. Okay, ready? Yep. Okay, going cold.
In training, a 70% accuracy rate is acceptable. But on this mission, they must achieve 100% accuracy or cost some of the American airmen depending on them their lives.
06 fireball on you.
Roger, understand fireball. 2, go ahead and start your move.
4, 3, 2, 1. There it goes. That's for you, double line.
This burden of responsibility is severe, and the men of the 101st soon turn abandoned school buses into a practice range meant to replicate the targets they will hit.
Hit. Hit. Roger that. Smoke.
As vital as the destruction of the enemy sites is, the most difficult and dangerous leg of the mission will be getting there in the first place. The featureless Iraqi desert not only affords them no cover, it provides no point of reference to help them find their way. With very few terrain features to guide them, the Apache's passive Doppler navigation system will have a difficult time maintaining an accurate global position. As a solution, Air Force Pavlo helicopters, equipped with more advanced navigational systems, are assigned to act as pathfinders for the Army assault team.
Hawkins and Roberts. Here. Blankenship Felden. Here. Rader and Brown. And Stanislaw and Birkin. Here. Time hack. We've got 1903.
In the Gulf, last-minute briefings like this would become routine for Apache pilots. But on the first night of the conflict, the men of the 101st are as yet unblooded.
We'll run position lights dim. Altitude will be from 50 to 100 feet and 100 knots. Team 2, once your DMS...
They assemble for the final briefing just minutes before liftoff. Only then do they learn the location of their specific targets and the time of execution. 90 minutes later, at 2:38 a.m., they will fire the first shots of the Persian Gulf War.
Let's go, guys.
Reality sets in when each crew is outfitted with an M16 should the worst come to pass.
Don't forget your tapes.
Got it.
So you can record it.
Finally, years of training will be put to the acid test of combat.
I'm going to be real glad to be American instead of Iraqi.
These young soldiers will traverse 150 kilometers of open desert in the black of night under strict radio silence. Adrenaline keeps them awake as they creep over the curves of the desert, dipping down into wadis, maintaining an airspeed of 100 knots and an altitude of 15 meters to escape the passive sweep of enemy radar.
Around the time we got to the Iraqi border, there was some small arms fire. It was probably just nervous troops. It wasn't well directed, it wasn't high volume. It was more of a shooting into the sky because the noise went by.
Before launch, Apache and Pavlo pilots agreed upon a predetermined map coordinate. Once over that point, the Pavlos will update the Army flyers as to just where they are.
Okay, about another 20 seconds. Roger. Getting in close.
35 minutes into the mission, the Pavlos navigation system confirms that the strike force is now passing over the coordinate. As they do, the pathfinders drop bundles of flares onto the desert floor.
There they go. They went out. You see them? Turn left a little bit, turn left, turn left.
Each Apache then passes over the lights, and the pilots enter the predetermined grid coordinates in their Doppler navigational systems.
Pausing the Doppler. Roger, and I'm slowing 60 knots, heading 025.
Seconds later, they wave off their escort and proceed unattended. From there on, the men of the 101st are on their own.
I want to say it's exciting, but you don't think about it. We were just too busy at that time. They took us to within about 12 kilometers of the target area. We were in Iraqi airspace for about probably 30 minutes. We picked the most clandestine routes that we could to get us in there.
Okay, I've got some sights up there. Okay, good. They're up on top of the hill. Okay, I've got some antennas. Roger. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's a target area right in there. All right, go ahead. Make sure that's stored.
We have radar warning receiving equipment on the aircraft that'll tell us if the aircraft's being painted by a threat radar. We didn't pick any of that up until we got probably within that 12-kilometer realm. That radar stayed in the search mode the entire time, so I'm 90% sure that they had no idea that we were there.
There's the generators right there. Okay. Party at 10.
And at exactly 10 seconds prior to 2:38 in the morning, all 8 aircraft fired their missiles.
Fire.
There's one for you, Saddam.
Apaches work in lethal unison. Each gunship is assigned to search and destroy a primary and a secondary target. Each crew's secondary target is the primary target of their wingmen. The redundancy proves brutally effective.
Okay, go ahead and tell him that I saw the hits on his target.
4.5 minutes after pulling into a hover, it's over.
There it goes. Okay, I cannot see any more targets in my area.
The Iraqi sites are isolated, far from any cities or towns. Their destruction is muted and quick.
One of the concerns that we had as pilots, we did not know to what level our brother airmen in the Air Force had been briefed on our mission. We broadcast the code words that the target was destroyed, no casualties, no downed aircraft. We knew at that time, once we'd done that the rest of the air war was coming in right behind us. And I remember on my way out, a Strike Eagle locked me up on his target acquisition radar. And that made me wonder exactly how much they had been briefed on our mission. We were very happy when we looked up the last second as he went overhead.
It was an inspiring sight to see that, the amount of aircraft going in. You knew that it had started. It was a good feeling.
The success of this mission effectively blinded Saddam Hussein to the coming onslaught. In the next few hours, over 500 enemy targets are struck. It's a blow from which Iraq will never recover. Many had predicted losses of 50 Allied planes on that first night, but by morning, only one is missing.
Our staging area was a standby recovery airfield for battle-damaged aircraft. And this guy came in and landed. He had obvious battle damage to his aircraft. He was shot up pretty good. My thought at the time was, congratulations, buddy, you made it back. Hope we helped.
After 6 weeks of constant pounding by coalition air forces, the ground war to dislodge Iraqi troops from Kuwait finally begins. Now, Apache pilots set about doing the job for which they were initially trained, protecting their own. When it comes to close air support, no Navy or Air Force plane compares to the Apache. To the GIs slugging it out below, no tool is more powerful, more precise, or more responsive than the AH-64. The gunship packs up to 16 Hellfire missiles that can knock out enemy tanks from over 10 kilometers away. Most Iraqis never see or hear it coming. When struck, the Hellfire's shaped charge slices through armor, spewing molten lead throughout the vehicle.
You could see the people running away from it. You could see it in the FLIR of them running into each other, trying to figure out where to go. And it's not one concerted effort of go left, go right, go forward, go back. They were running into each other trying to figure out where to go.
One of the reasons the Iraqis had such a morale problem with the Apache was it would just show up and you couldn't hear it, you couldn't see it. It was at night. The thing is quiet and all of a sudden something would blow up. Other aircraft you can hear coming, or you can hear them descending in a dive, or a missile was on the way sometimes, but an Apache, it just was out of nowhere.
Under this kind of punishment, the Iraqi will to resist begins to crumble.
We actually captured one day an entire Iraqi battalion with AH-64s. They surrendered to the helicopters. It caught us all by surprise. We didn't know what to do. How do you capture POWs with AH-64s?
Roger, we got a whole bunch of guys throwing AK-47s up the air down here. Does that mean anything?
They came out of their holes and out of their bunkers, waving their white flags, gathered themselves in groups, put down their weapons, and sat there and waited.
This is one of the dragon-looking bunch. Fucking laser storm. I don't know what the hell they're doing, these guys.
That's before the war ever started, and that was 50 miles deep into Iraq.
Soon, 500,000 coalition troops are on the move. During the Gulf War, the front lines change constantly. The battlefield is more fluid than any other in history.
Armored reconnaissance in terms of Apaches and 58 Deltas going out tonight. They will go to a tactical pause long enough to refuel their tanks.
The Apache is a pure gunship, but flying so close to the ground provides pilot and gunner with an extremely limited view of the battlefield. This is where the OH-58 reconnaissance helicopter comes into play. It's the Apache's eyes, and when combat does break out, the tiny craft darts ahead to locate Iraqi targets and directs the gunships onto them. Time and again, Apaches streak beyond American armor units and clear the area of any hostile forces that can threaten their advance. Army pilots find themselves pushing deeper into enemy territory with each passing day. They serve as a steel umbrella for the troops below and brave considerable flak to do so.
ID something. What's your target? 72 for movement back.
It was a funny conversation between my backseater and myself and then the other aircraft. It was a question of, what was that? Did you see that? I said, okay, keep going. We had no idea what it was. The next round that went off near the helicopter, it dawned on us when it was, and it's like, we're being shot at. And a lot of stuff becomes reflex and just reaction. You're not, I dare say fear was not a part of it, because you're more concerned with trying to protect everybody else and trying to keep yourself in a situation of survivability.
Okay, somebody give me a missile, we'll take care of it. We ain't got no more missiles. Oh man. I reckon we could go land next to it and I'll drop a frag in it. Oh, we could do that. 2-6, this is enough dicking around. Let's head home. Same route as inbound. Left tail turn.
A small element of fear makes you think a little faster, makes you respond a little keener and a little sharper. It heightens your senses. So I would never want a small element of fear to be removed. But again, the overriding attribute should be courage. And courage to overcome and deal with that fear comes from great training.
Anytime you train, there's always the thought in the back of your mind, oh, this is not for real. And no matter what I do, unless something catastrophic happens to the aircraft, I will return home from training and go home and see the family or whatever. When we launched on our first mission, there was the thought in the back of your mind that, hey, this is for real. As we approached the battle, all the gunners were heads down looking at a TV screen. So again, it was surreal, if you will. There's a fight going on outside the cockpit, but your duty was to look at a TV screen and almost play a video game.
Stand by 1. 6, this is 4-6, we need to egress. We're almost getting close to bingo fuel.
In wartime, of course, it's the survival of my front seater. I mean, you get pretty close to those guys, kind of like the little brother, and your aircraft, and then, of course, your unit. I mean, that's the Army teaches unit cohesion, so that's probably the most important thing. You don't want anything to happen to your guys.
I've lost my stick buddies here, or my wingmen.
The Iraqis could not see us. We were hovering at 100 feet above the ground. They didn't have any radar systems or any air defense systems that were operable that we knew about, so their fire was directed at our ground troops. We saw a M3 Bradley get hit, and you could say, hey, there's 4 dead Americans there, so that was emotional.
Pace of combat accelerates. Distinguishing friend from foe becomes increasingly confusing.
What does that look like? Looks like a hunk of junk, I don't know.
I second-guessed it to the point where I probably would have gotten shot down, but I was not going to shoot if I did not have a positive identification of that target either. I would rather be shot down than have the feeling that I had shot somebody.
This confusion meant that 8 days before the main ground assault, Apache pilots attached to the 1st Infantry Division clearly had serious problems. As the ground skirmish between Iraqi armored scouts and forward elements of the 1st Infantry Division, or the Big Red One, heats up, Apache pilots are soon called upon to support 1,000 1st Division troops that have pushed 5 kilometers into Iraq. This forward element is called Task Force Iron and has been sent to probe enemy defenses. On the evening of February the 16th, scouts spot Iraqi armored vehicles dodging in and out of the desert folds just in front of the American right flank. When evening gives way to night, anxious troops fire a single TOW missile at the Iraqis, striking one of the enemy vehicles. Deep in hostile territory, Task Force Iron is thinly stretched along a 30-kilometer line. Its commander, Lieutenant Colonel James Hillman, anchors his right flank with a Bradley fighting vehicle and an M113 armored personnel carrier. Throughout the night, reports of enemy movement there increase. Hillman becomes concerned about the strength and intention of the Iraqi force sitting astride his right flank. Soon, he requests air support from the Apache pilots attached to the Big Red One. Just after midnight, 2 gunships from the 11th Aviation Brigade lift off and head north into the dark and gusty winter night. Flying conditions are wretched, 25-knot winds and no moon. The flight is led by the unit's 42-year-old commander, Colonel Ralph Hales. Hales flies under the call sign Gunfighter 6. So as to better control his forces, Hales has been ordered not to take part in the fighting himself. He chooses to disobey.
Okay, night mission of 16. 17. Yeah, 17.
His wingman that night is Captain Dan Garvey. Garvey flies under the radio call sign Blue 6.
RD-6, Gunfighter 6.
The pilots quickly spot 2 vehicles that seem to be sitting a couple of kilometers north of the American line. Gunfighter 6 and Blue 6 then establish radio contact with Colonel Hillman to confirm the targets as hostile.
Okay, you have a Bradley at 9046, 245, and he's oriented north on the screen line. He's got an APC near him also. Then off to his right are these 2 vehicles that I see, and those are the vehicles at 915-270. Your Bradley is not even looking anywhere near them. Over.
Early on, Garvey in Blue 6 notices that their Apache fire control computers contradict the grid locations for the 2 enemy scouts given to them by the men on the ground. At Garvey's urging, they take a closer look, closing to within 3 kilometers of the target vehicles. But Task Force Commander Hillman, having been told by the pilots that the vehicles sit nearly 2 kilometers north of his lines, reassures the airmen that these must be the enemy scouts pinpointed earlier by his own ground troops.
Roger, I don't worry about that. Could you still engage those 2 vehicles at the 270 grid line? Roger, I could shoot those easy, right. Roger, go ahead, take them out.
Hales, in Gunfighter 6, decides to rely on his own battlefield judgment instead of the Apache computer.
Okay, firing gun. Gunfighter stalling. Radar 13. Fucking gun jammed.
When Hales' 30mm gun jams, it's just the first of several opportunities he will get to re-evaluate the data and abort the mission.
Gunfighter 6 is on the net, have the 2 vehicles in sight. It appears one of them is in fact killed, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot the other one now. Roger, go ahead, take him out.
Noting that one of the vehicles appears partially destroyed, Hales assumes these are the same enemy scouts struck earlier by the TOW missiles.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's hard to pull this trigger. Back me up a little bit here. Tell me, I'm firing heading 070, 3,800 meters. So my current grid...
Hales, still noticing the discrepancy between his fire control computer and the grid coordinates provided by the ground commander, hesitates again before following through with the mission.
And the grid of the target... Roger, I got 90223, and I've got it out at 3,800 meters. Ready in the back.
Again, the opportunity to abort presents itself when Hales cannot lock up the laser on target. He reverses the FLIR image for greater contrast.
More track. Switch to black hawk. There you go. Now do the nice and steady. I hope it's enemy. That's all right. Just stay on. Here it comes. That's one. I guess you could say that hit it. All right. Now let's take a look at the second one. Gunfighter 6 completely destroyed the first target with the first bullet. Let's take out the second one. Let's go. Roger, I'm going to go ahead and shoot the second vehicle. It's still intact, but it's fixing to go away. Yep, you're ready in the back. Let's do them. Looking good. This bud's for you. Uh-oh. That's all right. He's dead, too.
Ooh-wee, did we hit those targets?
Roger. Trust me when I say that anything is around those two vehicles is dead. There are no hot targets. Oh, got 2 personnel walking away from the targets.
Roger, you got guns?
My gun is jammed. They're walking on a heading of east.
When Hales's gun jams again, he asks Garvey in Blue 6 to kill the survivors.
Roger, we've got them here. They're walking 090 here. Break Blue 6. Can you engage with guns?
Roger, engaging with guns.
Just as Garvey's gunner is about to take out the 2 men, a ground controller interrupts the mission with chilling news.
The kids are reporting that maybe friendly vehicles may have been hit over. What? Roger, I was afraid of that. I was really afraid of that.
5 is engaging the target from 30.
Ceasefire, ceasefire.
Ceasefire.
Acknowledge ceasefire.
Roger, ceasefire.
All the time, 25-knot winds had been blowing the 2 Apaches to the east. Human error did the rest. Instead of heading due north and perpendicular to the American lines as the pilots had thought, the helicopters had been drifting nearly parallel to them. That's why the Bradley and APC sitting at the far end of the right flank seemed to Hales and Garvey to be north of the American position.
I hope it's not friendlies I just blew up, because they're all dead.
It's easier for us to engage a target out there and say, yeah, whatever that is. But it was stressed that you would be positive about what you engaged. And it was also stressed of a point at which the friendly units would stop, and that's where the ground commanders would tell us, we've got no friendly units beyond this point. But there was still an identification upon this. It's a pilot responsibility.
Dragon 6, Gunfighter 6, I destroyed 2 vehicles at 917, correction, 915-270, and they were both friendly vehicles. Request permission to break station and go home. Negative, remain on station. Those things are going to happen. Over.
Friendly fire or fratricide is a fact of war. There is no way around it. Technology will never solve it, even though many say that it eventually will. And quite honestly, you can't fault the person who actually pulls the trigger. He's doing his very best. And quite often, he's much more cautious than he probably should be in combat sometimes, because when you're very cautious in combat, you become a target yourself.
Yeah, how much more left? I don't know. Very hard for me to concentrate right now. I know it. I'm just double checking. They look like they are. I just killed a bunch of people, you know. Yeah, but we don't know which ones they are. They're friendlies. They're U.S. people.
Hales is right. The first Apache ground support kills of the war are a 23-year-old specialist, Jeff Middleton, and Private Bob Talley. Talley is just 18. 6 others are wounded in the attack, but somehow survive.
Are you up there? I'm ruined, you know. I know it, but listen to me. I killed some people here. I know it.
Just hours after landing, Hales is relieved of command for violating orders. And so the Apache is involved in just one friendly fire incident in Desert Storm. By the end of the war, they carry out nearly 10,000 missions without mishap. Less than 6 weeks after it began, the conflict comes to a close. Saddam Hussein's feared army disintegrates beneath the weight of the coalition air onslaught. And the burned hulks of over 600 enemy tanks attest to the AH-64's prowess. The success and failure of the Apache in the Gulf stem from the same root. The combined arms team and computer-enhanced weaponry proved lethal to Saddam Hussein's more primitive war machine. Yet, high technology itself often succumbed to the primitive environment. The destructive power at 2 men's fingertips easily overwhelmed arms systems not yet caught up with the computer age. But when the men in the cockpit found themselves overwhelmed with data, they sometimes proved just as deadly to their own troops. This is a byproduct of the modern age. Tools that are meant to ease the pilot workload actually complicate it, and the time these tools bequeath him is simply filled with new tasks. Events since the Gulf War prove that, if anything, this trend is accelerating. The Army's new longbow Apache is meant to combine the reconnaissance capability of the OH-58 with the destructive firepower of the AH-64. With the longbow, Apache pilots will benefit from a digital terrain mapping navigation system, but face the staggering job of serving in both the scout and attack role.
A pilot and an observer in a scout helicopter are extremely valuable assets. They have a confirming capability. Do you see what I see? What do you think about that? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What does your information say? When you boil that down to being in just a gunner and a pilot in one machine, the burden of responsibility, in my opinion, is a little too high. I think you really do need multiple crew input. And a scout also is made to be very maneuverable. He's smaller. He's more maneuverable. He's more stealthy. He's in and out quicker. And he can provide that information without risking the more expensive Apache.
Apache is a machine that exists to kill. And some fear that as the technology overwhelms the humans operating it, its killing power could become dangerously indiscriminate. But since the dawn of flight, airmen have had to adapt to the technology thrust upon them. And like all Army pilots, Apache airmen will continue to evolve, so long as the soldiers below look to them to be their guardians of the night.